First of all, thank you, Vera. Medieval Spain is sometimes remembered as an interfaith utopia, a land where Muslims, Christians, Jews, and more lived together in peace and worshiped side by side in peace. And flamenco reminds us that the blending of music from diverse cultures can create such beauty. Good morning. It is such a joy to be with you here on the 9th anniversary of this congregation. How wonderful to be gathered together as a group of folks who have planted this seed and watered this seed and watched it grow into the thriving place that it is now. What a joy, what a delight. I want to offer my gratitude to all of you and to the first peoples of this place. Who knows whose land we are on right now?
Remetush
Ohlone. Thank you. Thank you. My great gratitude to the Remetush Ohlone, whose land this is. May it return to their stewardship soon. And I have some opening words for us this morning from the Tao Te Ching. This is translated by Ursula K. Le Guin as being called Trust and Power. And it reads, "The wise have no mind of their own, finding it in the minds of ordinary people. They're good to good people, and they're good to bad people. Power is goodness. They trust people of good faith, and they trust people of bad faith. Power is trust. They mingle their life with the world. They mix up their mind with the world. Ordinary people look after them. Wise souls are children." And now I'd like to invite Tom to lead us in our opening hymn.
And it is number 1051, We Are. This is a hymn by Isaiah Barnwell, who is a longtime member of the a cappella ensemble Sweet Honey in the Rock. And also, well, I won't say any more about her. You can either use the teal hymnal or you can read the words in the order of service. Is there anyone who's never sung this before? Wonderful. So then we're going to have Dietrich play through the opening section once, and then we'll start singing. So please stand, embody your spirit as you're able, and join me in singing this. We Are. Thank you for singing.
We are our grandfather's dreamings. I'm a grandfather. I've got 5 granddaughters, and I recently went to the Jelly Belly factory and the dreams. It's time to light the chalice. Chalice lighting is a ritual that unites us as Unitarian Universalists. The lit candle shining in the darkness has the same World War II origin as the Amnesty International logo. These chalice lighting words come from Reverend Deborah Falk. The title is "The Chalice Lit Among Us is a Beacon." Please join me in reading aloud these words. The chalice lit among us is a beacon of hope in a world of crisis, a beacon of possibility made manifest in community, a beacon of warmth through our interconnections, a beacon of light illuminating our shared wisdom, a beacon of connection by our being together. I'm going to read a poem now by Yehuti Israel. She's also known as a rapper Crystal de Rock. Crystal's originally from the Bahamas and describes herself as a book writer, a rapper, and a poetess of love. It's called Spend Your Time Thinking. Spend your time thinking about what's right, what's important, what's meaningful, what's going on around you, and what will better your life away from grief or strife. Spend your time thinking about the things that bring about real and good change and what is positive, on what's going to bring about solutions, not the things that situations or confusions that will derail or mislead us. Think on things that are super, natural, beneficial, official, and not on things that are supernatural, unethical, carnal, or artificial. Let us spend the day doing something productive, incredible, that is undeniably unforgettable. Spend your time thinking wisely and delightfully, remembering to always give thanks to the timekeeper, the giver, and the creator of time, and of all things seen and unseen, with joy.
And now, it is my great pleasure to welcome back to UUCC for our beloved speaker today, Esther Wallace. Esther works and plays in the realms of meaning-making, sacred space, and social justice. Raised Christian, Esther has cherished being invited to profound experiences in Buddhist, Taoist, humanist, Muslim, and pagan communities. She is a Jewish Unitarian Universalist and graduate of Star King School for the Ministry, and is very interested in emergent spiritual communities and the intersections of ministry and disability. Welcome, Esther.
Thank you, Bill. Again, thank you all for having me back. It is always such a joy to be with you, whether here at the Coast Side or at UUSM, where I've also shared such wonderful experiences with many of you. Let's take a deep breath before I start talking. Get comfortable. And I always like to say, feel welcome to do what you need to do to be comfortable as I'm up here talking for a while. Whether it's moving around or standing up, that's just fine. Do what you need to do to be at home in your body. All right. I'm going to need you to roll me a wisdom saving throw, please. That's 1d20 plus your wisdom modifier. Out of curiosity, how many folks here today understand the meaning of what I just just said. Okay, 2, 3. What did I just say?
Something 1d20s.
A 1d20, Alex, you wanna?
It's part of a game, and it's to make a check to see if the character can do something.
It's part of a game, and it's to make a check to see if your character can do something. Yes, we have at least 3 nerds in the audience today. I'm married to one of them. Thank you for supplying that here. So, for those who understood the words but are totally confused as to what they mean, this sentence is referring to an action you can take in a tabletop role-playing game, or a TTRPG. You may have heard of one of the most famous TTRPGs, Dungeons and Dragons. And to boil down a lot of things that happen in tabletop role-playing games to one simple personal definition, I would say that people play TTRPGs to have fun and tell collaborative stories within a structure or framework provided by a rules system. Often, but not always, this involves embodying or playing a character that you invent, someone who interacts with other player characters throughout the course of one or more games. Some TTRPG groups have been playing the same characters together for decades, and watching the way these characters' stories develop and grow is a deep and meaningful experience for many people. A feature of many TTRPG systems are what are called attributes or abilities, characteristics that help you determine some of the basic foundations of your character. The most famous are the Dungeons and Dragons inspired Big Six of strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And I will spare you too many details and the ongoing worthwhile debates and discussions about whether these Big Six are philosophically and mechanically good. What's important to know is they help the game function, and they also serve as nerd shorthand in a lot of conversations. I dumped my strength stat means I'm not very strong. They have a high charisma modifier, means someone is striking or likable or charismatic. A long-running debate in many nerd circles is the difference between the attributes of intelligence and wisdom. Rather than have me tell you right away what I think the difference is, I wanted to crowdsource a few more perspectives on this discussion. So I'm going to ask you again, what do you think are some key ways that intelligence and wisdom are distinct from one another? You don't have to know anything about the game, just those 2 words and concepts, intelligence and wisdom. How do they differ? Yes?
Intelligence is inborn and wisdom comes from experience.
Intelligence is inborn and wisdom comes from experience. Others, yes?
You can be smart, but you don't want to get too smart, because when you get too smart, you forget how dumb you can be. And that's what wisdom comes from experience.
Wisdom comes from experience. Be careful of getting too smart. Tom?
Intelligence tells you how to do something. Wisdom tells you whether it's worthwhile doing.
I love that. I love that. Intelligence tells you how to do something. Wisdom tells you whether it's worthwhile doing. Yeah, so I think these are all getting at some general concepts about the 2. I primarily play in the TTRPG system Pathfinder, and I kind of arrived at everything Tom did, but I was curious about what an official rulebook has to say. So I went to the Pathfinder Player Core to see how a bunch of game designers think about the difference between intelligence and wisdom. And they say, intelligence measures how well your character can learn and reason. A high intelligence modifier allows your character to analyze situations and understand patterns, and it means they can become trained in additional skills and a bunch of other very nerdy things I won't mention here. Wisdom measures your character's common sense, awareness, and intuition. Wisdom helps your character detect hidden things, resist mental effects, and a bunch of other nerdy things I won't get into right here.
That's wise.
Thank you, Tom. I feel like the Pathfinder designers are on to something when they think about wisdom as a measure of common sense, awareness, intuition, the capacity to detect hidden or often overlooked things, the ability to resist strong pressure to cave to a particular way of thinking or being when we know it's not in alignment with our values. But what else does wisdom mean? Well, I have a ministerial secret to let you in on. There are a lot of things that we as ministers don't actually know. When talking about wisdom, one hopes, if not to sound wise, at least not to sound foolish. And of course, the minute one starts writing about wisdom, one feels very foolish indeed. One being me. My love of tabletop RPGs and writing sermons gave me hope that my little excursion into the Pathfinder player core would leave me with a rich bounty of ideas, a springboard from which to wax poetic about wisdom. And for a definition of wisdom written for a fantasy role-playing game, I think it's a decent springboard. But I was left wanting more, wanting to go deeper into what it might mean to have common sense, awareness, intuition, to detect hidden or overlooked things, to resist strong pressures from the outside world. So I turned to my own spiritual tradition, recalling teachings about two of the Sephirot on the tree of life in Kabbalistic Jewish teachings. The emanations or dimensions of Chokmah, wisdom, and Bina, understanding. To put things in very simple terms, with apologies to scholars and fellow students of Kabbalah, Chokmah, or wisdom, manifests through insight, a kind of sudden insight gained from the more than human world or very deep human experience. Chokmah implies the ability to look deeply into the nature of reality and sift through experiences like panning for gold until one arrives at some deeper meaning or truth. It can be associated with the seed and germination stages of human creativity. But Chokmah, or wisdom on its own, can be a little abstract. Moments of raw insight can be difficult to translate into meaning for our everyday human lives. And that is where Bina, understanding, comes into play. Chokmah, wisdom, is the second Sephirot on the tree of life, and Bina is the third. Wisdom must be channeled through understanding for us to effectively apply it to our lives. So Kabbalistic teachings tell us. Understanding allows us to analyze experiences and ideas, to differentiate between concepts, to make meaning of our insights, and translate that meaning into action. Understanding without wisdom can become rote analysis, an intake of data without space or time given to truly grasp the meanings of that data. Wisdom without understanding can be confusing or relegated to moments of intense inner experience that is not carried forth into our wider lives. Chokmah and Bina, wisdom and understanding, need each other. When I take stock of the world we live in, I'm struck by the fact that I often wind up noticing where wisdom resides by first noticing the absence of it. This week, I noticed the absence of wisdom in much of the news coverage, particularly of folks questioning the fundamental experiences, even the bodies, of a few prominent women of color. There was a denial of the racial identities of Kamala Harris, our black biracial woman candidate for president right now. There was scrutiny of the body of the greatest gymnast of our time, Simone Biles. There was anti-transgender, misogynistic, and racist statements made about Olympic boxer Iman Khalif. And if you'll allow me a brief aside, Iman Khalif isn't actually transgender. but anti-trans discrimination is being aimed at her, a cisgender woman of color. And to me, this is yet another example of the insight that discrimination never winds up just hurting the group of people it's aimed at. It winds up hurting all of us sooner or later. So I read these stories and others this week, and I thought to myself, none of this is wise. Where is the wisdom here? Also, this week, Alex and I attended an almost 4-hour meeting of our local county board of supervisors. Some of you may know the unincorporated area where we live is currently referred to as Kelseyville, named after a man who committed genocide against the indigenous Pomo people of what we currently call Lake County. In recent years, there has been a grassroots campaign for the Federal Board of Geographic Names to change the name of the area where we live from Kelseyville to Canocti. Canocti means woman mountain and is a name that is shared with a mountain near our home. Sadly, perhaps predictably, there has been a backlash to this effort to change the name. At the Board of Supervisors meeting this week, we heard from many people who exhibit a degree of attachment to the name Kelseyville that I, at least, consider unwise. We heard from many folks who assured the room during public comment they were not racist, only to follow up those statements with some of the most racist things I have ever heard anyone speak out loud in person, and that is saying something. We heard from people whose entire emotional worlds apparently might collapse if this town is renamed. We heard some really bad arguments for why changing the name is a terrible idea. There was, in my opinion, a great lack of wisdom in many of the things that were spoken that morning. And yet, the day was also marked by statements filled with wisdom and understanding. From many indigenous people who spoke about the ways that colonization, genocide, and epigenetic legacies of trauma weave together to keep harm alive in this name. To white folks who said, I know and witness my indigenous neighbors being harmed. And I know that when one group of us is being harmed, that means we all need to find our way to right relationship. To folks who spoke about the fact that places and names change all the time, there was wisdom in that room. In the most tense moments of public comment, I found myself returning often to my breath, to deep listening, and to considering what action I might take next to align myself with this wisdom and understanding offered to everyone present in that space. And I wondered what I might share with all of you about how we cultivate wisdom in times and places that seemed determined to throw so much foolishness at us. As I pondered, I was drawn back again and again to the following passage from the Tao Te Ching, which Ursula Le Guin translates as, "Consider beginnings." And this passage reads, "Do without doing, act without action, savor the flavorless, treat the small as large, the few as many, meet injury with the power of goodness. Study the hard while it's easy, do big things while they're small. The hardest jobs in the world start out easy, and the great affairs of the world start small. So the wise soul, by never dealing with great things, gets great things done. Now, since taking things too lightly makes them worthless, and taking things too easy makes them hard, the wise soul, by treating the easy as hard, doesn't find anything hard." There's a lot of juice in that passage. So much so that I could probably preach a whole series of sermons on it. Today, I want to offer us 3 insights that I take away from Lao Tzu's words. The first insight is that to cultivate wisdom, we can start small. We don't have to toil away in an ivory tower somewhere, studying arcane and esoteric methods. Rather, we can peer into the soil of our own lives and notice what seeds are there. By listening and noticing as many things as possible around us deeply, no matter how mundane they are, we can begin to notice how big things grow from little things. When we offer attention and care to the matters of life that seem small or even unimportant, we develop the capacity to offer attention and care to the things that are huge and extremely important. We study the hard while it's easy. We do big things while they're small. We, like ants, can devour the large things in life bite by tiny bite. And in doing so, we become able to comprehend the things that seem insurmountably complex or difficult. We become more able to receive those flashes of cosmic insight that Hokmah, wisdom, offers us, and more able to translate them through Bina, understanding. Or, in nerd speak, our attributes of wisdom and intelligence start working together to help us beat the DC we're up against. And if you didn't understand any of that last sentence, that's okay. So, start small. The second insight I want to offer us is actually embedded in the first. Strive less, notice more. Lao Tzu tells us that to do without doing, to act without acting, to not deal with great things in order to get great things done, is to study the hard while it's easy. I think sometimes in the pursuit of wisdom, or just in the pursuit of what we think needs to get done, we wind up in such a flurry of activity and mental exertion that we lose track of those inner voices and external sources that guide us towards wisdom. Lao Tzu's words invite us to a kind of deep rest, a state that prioritizes listening and noticing deeply. As the reading "Connections are made slowly," or the 7 of Pentacles in the back of our gray hymnal tells us, quote, "Connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground." Our culture, especially in this region of the world, often tells us we need to move fast and break things to find success or to make an impact on the world. But Lao Tzu reminds us that, perhaps paradoxically, we attune to wisdom by moving slower and studying the shape of things. So, strive less, notice more. Connections are made slowly. The final insight I want to offer us comes a little less directly through Lao Tzu's words, but is inspired by them. It's a riff on an embodied practice I learned from my teacher, Tyson Casey, who is a student of the Tao, or the Way. This is an inner resource I paid thousands of dollars to learn in seminary that you get to learn for free right now. And you can return to in moments where you crave wisdom and understanding. And if you don't want to practice this with us this morning, that's totally fine. In which case, I invite you to just enjoy attuning to your body and breath while we practice together. I want to invite us all to begin by just noticing our breath once more. We don't need to change or alter anything. Just notice where your breath is. If it's shallow or if it's deep, fast or slow. Notice the way your breath enters and exits your body, filling your lungs and then leaving them. Again, no need to alter anything. Just notice what is. At some point, you may want to let your eyes drift shut, if that feels supportive. If you'd like to leave them open, maybe try finding one place to let them linger in a point of focus. As you are in this place of noticing, I want to ask you, what is wisdom? You don't have to answer out loud, and you definitely don't have to answer perfectly. This is not a test or a quiz, just a wondering. What is wisdom? Notice the words or ideas that come to your mind and let them rest there. You don't have to do a deep dive right now. Noticing is enough. Now I want to invite you to imagine a physical space that feels like wisdom to you. A natural landscape, a room, an altar. How does wisdom appear to you in this form? What shapes do you notice? What sounds or smells or textures are present? What is the weather and the atmosphere like? Let yourself sink into this place for a little while, noticing what you feel as your body and spirit reside there. And I want to ask you again, as you're here in this place, what is wisdom? And just notice what bubbles to the surface, if anything different than last time, and let it rest there. And as you rest here, know you can return to this inner landscape of wisdom, this haven, at any time. No matter where you are or what you're doing or what is unfolding around you, this place of wisdom is always available to you. And I invite you to notice your breath again, making whatever preparations you need to at least temporarily leave this inner landscape of wisdom, knowing you can return whenever you want. Let your breath guide you back to this place, this time, this moment. And when you're back here, let your eyes open and your gaze shift, gentle movement come to your body. You are here. May we all return to our place of wisdom when we need it, whether it is this internal landscape or a tangible place or places in the world around us. May we strive less and notice more. May we start small. May we do without doing, act without acting. Savor the flavorless and treat the small as large, the few as many. May we study the hard while it's easy and do big things while they are small. And may we meet injury with the power of goodness, wisdom, and understanding. Amen. Selah, blessed be. Kenya Hiratzon, may it be so. And now I'd like to invite Diedrich, who will come play Schubert's Impromptu No. 3, Opus 90.
Oh boy, it feels so good to see you all. Thank you for making the trip over here. Now, if this is what we look like every Sunday, I think we were a massive success. So thank you for giving me the illusion, at least on our 9th anniversary. I just want to say that, UUSM has been a very good friend to UUCC throughout these 9 years, and we probably wouldn't be here without UUSM support. So we've been doing a lot of things here on the coast, and I just want you to just imagine that you're there holding our hands as we're doing things like when we're helping LGBTQ plus youth through Coast Pride. We're raising funds for the senior center, Coastside Adult Daycare Health Center, where we're raising funds for Coastside Hope. You're there holding our hands. And when we go to the memorial services for the people, because of the mass shooting, we were there very active in planning the memorial services for the community. You were there holding our hands, because if you hadn't been providing the fiscal administrative support to UUCC, we wouldn't be there and wouldn't be able to do these things. So thank you again, and just the fact that you're showing up today, once again, you are holding our hands. So when you contribute to UUCC, and Carol, would you mind passing the plate? It's in the back. Pragmatically, contributions keep our community going and our services going and our relationships going, because we are self-supporting. We don't take money from UUSM, but they do give us administration costs for free. So by donating to UUCC, it's a vote for this community and its causes. Like I said, affordable housing, community mental health, a vote for the love for the wise, and oh so loving kindness that UUCC pours into the world. And there's a personal reason, touching for each of us. Giving to UUCC pours more loving kindness into each of our own lives, cultivates more love in our own lives. Giving of ourselves expresses a love that returns to us, given, received, and we are transformed in the process. Anyway, to donate by check, the instructions are in the order of service. The main thing is to make the check out to UU San Mateo, our fiscal sponsor, and note UUCC in the memo field. And Bill will put the instructions in the chat. And now we get to enjoy Vera playing part 2 of Don Zamora. And part of UUCC's success is the most extraordinary musicians that we've had play for us throughout the years. We are so blessed. Be Rick and Vera.
Now as we near the end of our service, I'm going to extinguish the chalice. Please read with me the words by Maggie Lovins. We extinguish this flame, but not its meaning and mission in our hearts. Our time together has come to an end. Go in peace, be of service to one another. May you move through the world in love for all your days.
Our closing hymn is number 1018. Come and go with me to that land. Again, I'll ask, does anybody know this? Does anybody not know this one? All right, that's what I thought. So, we don't know its exact origins, but it was first recorded as a gospel spiritual by Blind Willie Johnson in 1930. And later, in the 1960s, it became a freedom song in the early civil rights movement. So you can either use the teal hymnal at your seat or read the words in the order of service or just remember them because they're pretty simple. So please stand in body or in spirit as you're able. We will play this once through, and then please join me in singing, Come and Go With Me to That Land. Thank you all for singing. And now Esther has some closing words for us.
I want to invite you all into a little tiny practice that comes from our home congregation in Lake County. When we do our closing words, we often circle up, and I'm not going to ask us to quite do that today, but I will ask to just look at your neighbors and notice who is here. Appreciate who is here in the room and on Zoom. Just look at the boxes and notice. All right, our closing words today are in fact from the back of our great hymnal, 568, Connections are made slowly, the Seven of Pentacles. Connections are made slowly, sometimes they grow underground. You cannot always tell by looking what is happening. More than half a tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. Penetrate quietly as the earthworm that blows no trumpet. Fight persistently as the creeper that brings down the tree. Spread like the squash plant that overruns the garden. Gnaw in the dark and use the sun to make sugar. Weave real connections. Create real nodes. Build real houses. Live a life you can endure. Make love that is loving. Keep tangling and interweaving and taking more in, a thicket bramble wilderness to the outside, but to us, interconnected with rabbit runs and burrows and layers. Live as if you like yourself, and it may happen. Reach out, keep reaching out, keep bringing in. This is how we are going to live for a long time. Not always. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes. May we go in peace. Thank you.
Thank you.